Hey everyone, welcome to another Devlog session. So for today's session, we will be looking at different font families and how well they play together. So we will be looking at this site given from Canva, the ultimate guide to font pairing. So let's get to it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
So you can see great font combinations are essential to great design. And if you missed the previous video or the previous devlog session, we finished the layout. We were just using a plain old Inter font. So you can see it was pretty plain and it didn't really make the website pop. So now we are diving deep into the anatomy of typography, actually learning about the different parts of fonts and what helps, or what are the things that you need to be aware of when making decisions on which fonts to use and what plays well together. So I really like this site from Canva. They're giving you a lot of information right off the bat. You can see what are the common anatomy of a typography is. And so this is for me something that wasn't really obvious or common knowledge when I was working on back end stuff. So I'm a principal engineer, mostly working with architecture, infrastructure, scaling, and so diving into font families wasn't really something that fancied my interest. But now as a startup founder, an entrepreneur, a lot of the sites that I build nowadays heavily relies on aesthetics or how it comes off to new users of my application. And so you really, and if you're planning to become a solo founder, you need to be aware of things like this as well. And so now we're diving into what are the common fonts that are usually used in different industries. So you can see here, and you don't really need to know what are each parts are. I think the main critical bits here is the serifs. So serifs and terminals play a lot. If you see, you'll see in the next graph, serifs play a lot of. It has a lot of impact when you're picking which fonts to use with one another. So what is a serif? To begin with, it's the spike at the end of each, let's say, letter. Let's read the definition. A serif is a typeface with a small projection at the end of the letter strokes. Yeah, that's more well put. And then sans serif is without a serif. So sans is like the false of serif, and then script is another type. So it's writing it in cursive, and then slab serif is serif but more thick and block-like. So a slab serif is a typeface that's identified by its thick block-like serifs. So these are the four types here, and then here are more. How does the spacing and so alignment is the spacing, making adjustments of the components, making them sit together, and hierarchy is where you make it bold, regular, or medium, like what is the weight of the font. So when you're picking a font, it's more the critical bits, the critical design decision you make is more serif versus sans serif versus slab serif versus script. So these four, which are the which are the fonts that play well with each other. So Canva has provided us a good example of good combinations here. So I think I shouldn't have paused that one. So just going through the definitions here. Okay, let's go. So if you're in the more beginner side, it's always good to learn from the experience of others rather than trying to figure it out on your own. So as you become more comfortable with it, that's when you start experimenting. But when you're a beginner, you follow what the others have done first and see what good looks like. So Canva has provided us different industries and best practices of which fonts to use. So for example, in the design publication, they use League Spartan as the header, and then Libre Baskerville as the subheader, and then the text is also Libre Baskerville. So they also actually give a lot of the examples. At this point, I've decided it's best to have a asset of what font families is used for which industry. As I said, my main mantra has always been build once and then reuse multiple times. You earn the dividends based on building it once. And so it's good to have a sort of asset library when, especially in the web development space, where a lot of these things are all plumbing. I call them plumbing because these are the things you constantly do time and time again, but not necessarily the main value deliver. So font matching is one of them. It's a thing that you need to do over and over again as you build your application, but that's not the main value for your application. It gives off a feeling of professionalism in your application, but not necessarily what your application mainly does. So again, this site, they give you a lot of examples. So for example, here it kind of looks like a IKEA website where they have this. So they're using those font that are exactly what they said. And then number 2 is resume font. So they have 30 fonts matching in this link. I'll post it down below as a link so you can look over it as well. Here's the sports one. I won't finish this one because it's all just going through it. I'll let you go through the URL yourself, but I will show you how it looks like afterwards. So from the previous video, we were just using an inter font size, and there was a section in, I'll show you, so this is my own internal library. As I said, from when you're building a website, everything is a lot of it is plumbing, so you do a lot of things over and over again, and these are what they call plumbing, and so you don't want to always be doing the plumbing. So you create an asset of an example of, here are the things that I will always use when I build a lot of different applications down the road. And so now I have my own font library that I got from that URL, and then I have a good sense of what it would look like if I do this mix and matching. So for example, we started off in the design publication here, and then we scrolled down a bit for the sports, and so I went through all the fonts, and then I copy pasted all the fonts that are complementary to each other. I copy pasted like an example of it, so it's here on the right hand side, and now it gives me a sense of what I should use when I'm building what type of application. I don't need to keep looking back for that URL. I have my own library, and I will be reusing that. So I highly suggest, if you're a software engineer, you're more junior, even if you're already a senior, build your own asset library of code snippets of different applications, because a lot of these things like auth, database, UI, design, everything, it's all repetitive. And so don't waste your time building things like this from scratch over and over again. You have to be smart about what are the key values that bring to your application. What is the best use of your time? So from my asset library, let's go on. From my asset library, I was playing around and I have decided that finance. So they had a example here, finance. Here are the best practice fonts that are used in the finance industry. So this is what we'll be trying. And the good thing about having this libraries, you can also try how it looks like. So I saved a lifestyle font family here, and I also wanted to see how it would look like. So on the left side, you can see this is the finance font family already from the layout that we sorted out. So now I want to see if this also, how would it look like with a, say, an adventure or a lifestyle font family suggested. So you can see in this website from Canva, they're saying like in an adventure web application, here are the recommended fonts. So if you have a Figma layout already, because you already built out that asset, you can easily try it out. And I'm sure there's a shortcut here when, if you have a library, like you can say change the primary headers, all the font size. But for now, as I said, I'm not as proficient in Figma yet, and so I'm doing a lot of it manually for now. And as I become more proficient with it, I use a lot of the shortcuts and the time-saving macros, so to speak, that allows you to build things much faster. And this is something you need to incorporate in your workflow as well. The things that that takes a lot of time, optimize it so that you don't always keep doing them, because again, these are not the things that deliver the value that you are hoping for, like figuring out changing font size. It takes a small time to actually learn the shortcuts, actually learn the proper way of doing it, and the dividends, especially if you keep doing it, the dividends will pay it in itself. So you learn you figure it out for a couple of minutes, like say 20 minutes, 15 minutes to figure out what's the best practice, and then you save hundreds of hours if you always do it. So invest in time in learning to figure out what are the shortcuts that you need to use, what are the time consumers that you need to optimize for. For example, in this scenario, if I had all the headers as a one component, I would be able to change everything in one go. But since I wasn't, I have to manually do them one by one. And it's because this is my first time actually working with Figma. I didn't notice, I didn't know that these are the things that I need to optimize for. So there's a saying in software engineering where premature optimization is the root of all evil. So it's like refactoring a code even though you don't know if you will be always using that code. And so rather than trying to optimize first, do a normal workflow and then highlight what are the things you always do as part of that workflow, rather than optimizing at the beginning, because you don't know yet what are the things you will repeatedly do. And so for now, in this example, I know that I will always be changing fonts because I've done it a couple of times. Now, next time I do it, I will make sure that this is optimized rather than doing it manually. Rather than clicking it one by one, if I can say these are the H1 or H2 of this application, I just need to change the H1. And I'm sure Figma has that feature, and that's something I need to learn. So again, if you have the asset, you're able to figure out what works well, what looks well. So at this point, we're trying to figure out which is the best font to go with. And another great thing about having a Figma layout here is you're able to put it side by side and compare from the scratch. If I change this, how does it look like? And at this point, I realize I don't need to change the whole thing. I just need to compare the hero banner, because a lot of the first impression comes from the hero banner. This is why they call it the hero banner. This is your hero, so to speak. This is your front gate. This is the color of your house. This is your front yard. This is what you show off to the world. So we want to compare just the hero banner. And as I said, like, I record a lot of my sessions and I leave notes for myself when I record the narrative. And we had the same thought. We can already get a sense of how it would look like by the font changes in the hero banner. We don't need to change everything. No, we already can tell from just the hero banner. And I think I would be opting for the finance, and this is why you can already tell that page of the best practice of font matching gives you what works well, because I'm dealing with finance here. You can see from the left side here the previous fonts that I use versus the finance. It fits well because when you think about money, your brain has all these preconditioned notion of how bank websites generally look like, and so it works well using the recommended fonts. As you become more comfortable with different font families, you would also be experimenting. You know what works well. But if you're relatively new, like myself, you follow the greats. You don't reinvent the wheel. Once you learn, I think that's how it works with different industries as well. When you're just starting off, you follow what the greats did, and then once you get a lot of the information, and that's when you start testing the boundaries, because you already know what the basic principles are. And that was the same case when I was starting off as an engineer. I followed a lot of senior engineers. Like I learned as much as I can from all the principals, the tech leads, the CTOs. Just absorbing as much knowledge as I can. And then when I became the principal engineer myself, now I can take all those things that I learned and then weigh those things in my mind on my own, given a specific circumstance, rather than coming in hot from when you're just starting off and you have all these great ideas but they're not really validated. And so that's one thing that I can see scale with regards to learning new things. You learn from the greats, and then once you're great yourself, you test the boundaries. For now, I'm removing the thumbnail because the font doesn't match from the original. So it looks weird, so I'm just putting in a frame. So for the next video, so now we have this good layout. I'll be aiming to build another application from scratch using the same layout. So I'll be just changing the color scheme, the text font, and just the styles. And you can see how this asset will start paying dividends in the long run, because I already created the one application here. Now I can just start building a lot of the future applications as well using the same layout. So my next idea is building an application of your SaaS, your micro SaaS, so software as a service. Using the same layout, we will be changing a lot of the copywriting. So copywriting the styles here, and we will see a lot of changes here. So this is more, at this point it's more priming what the next application would look like. I wanted to showcase that since I have an asset, I just copy pasted the whole thing, and I'll be just tweaking it. The whole video would be on the next one. So for now, thank you for watching. I will cut this video. See you.